Guys, it's Liz from Devalishangell, and today I'm going to show you how to make this super adorable cowboy outfit from scratch. I know I've been slacking on my tutorials, but I'm back and focused this year, so expect more to come. All the fabric that I'm using for this outfit is Lyrica or performance fabric, the same fabric that I use for bikinis. The link to the pattern for the bikini top is in the description and it's free. I'm cutting my straps 1.25 inches wide. The lengths for each strap is in the pattern. Me personally, I cut the 2 straps that tie around my neck at 21 inches, and then I cut the long strap just long enough so that it ties around my waist and into a bow. So now I'm going to cut out the triangles. So I'm going to cut one out using the pattern, and then I'm going to cut out the rest using that piece that I first cut out. That way I can make sure that they're all the same size. I'm going to cut 2 in the main fabric and then 2 in the lining, which I'm just doing plain black for the lining. Now that I have all the pieces cut out that I need for the top, I'm going to start by sewing the straps. So for the straps, I just fold the fabric in half, and I am going to add clear elastic on top. The link for the clear elastic is in the description as well. So I'm just going to fold that in half and then sew it on my serger. If you don't have a serger, I do recommend cutting the straps wider and then using a zigzag, but if you plan to make bikinis professionally or make them a lot, definitely invest in a serger. I'm just going to sew all 3 of those straps and then turn them right side out. The loop turner that I'm using is in the description as well, of course. The next step is to pin the triangles together, so I'm putting wrong sides together, and then I'm going to just pin along the 2 edges and sew along the 2 edges. I'm going to add elastic, but only to the 2 sides of the triangle. I like to not put the elastic all the way at the ends on the sides, like I usually leave about 1/2 inch. That way it's not bulky at the ends. I'm going to put the end of the strap into the top of the triangle and either sew it like that or fold it like it's a little burrito and sew it across there. I went ahead and sewed it once, and I'm just double checking to make sure that it looks good, so I'm gonna go back over it now just to make sure that it's really secure. And once it looks good, I'm gonna do the same thing to the other one. This process of adding the strap like this, sometimes it takes a little bit of practice just to get it to stay folded when you put it under the footer and everything, but once you get it down packed, it is definitely a good and easy technique to do. And I just want to say I'm proud of myself for having my nails done for this tutorial, because you already know sometimes I'll be making these tutorials, my nails be looking a little crusty, dusty, rusty, but today they're cute, they're giving. So I'm just gonna clip off the threads and the excess that's on the tip. I like to serge the bottom of the triangle so that the 2 fabric layers stay together. That way it's easy to sew the strap channel later on. Now it's time to sew the edges of the triangle, so I'm just going to fold it over. Make sure you keep that curve at the bottom of the triangle. This is going to help with the strap channel. So I'm using the 3-point zigzag stitch on my machine, and those are the settings. So I like to sew one side of the triangle down towards the strap and then do the other side down towards the strap as well. To finish off the triangles, I'm just going to make the strap channel now. So I'm going to fold in the bottom part of the triangle about 1/2 inch and pin it just to make sure everything looks even before I sew it. In all my sewing classes that I've done, this seems to be the most challenging part of making a bikini top, but just make sure that it's nice and even, and when you sew it, just line up both edges with a part of the footer to make sure it's even while you're sewing as well. Now that the cups are complete, I'm going to pull the strap through both of the strap channels. For the bottoms for this project, I used the Ranger pattern from Edgewater Ave. The link to this pattern is also in the description. I'm using the cheeky back pattern, and so now I'm just cutting it out in the size that I need and taping it all together. Just altering this pattern a little bit, so I'm going to add some room to the top here and make it this part at the bottom of each pattern a little wider. So here I am just kind of marking where I'm going to add that extra fabric at the top because I wanted it to be kind of a bit more high-waisted look. I altered the pattern a little bit. The best way to make sure it's even is to cut out half the pattern, then fold it over and cut out the other half. That way it's perfectly symmetrical. I'm going to cut out one of each, the front and the back, in the main fabric and then also in the lining as well. Now I'm going to put the cow print fabrics right side together and then the lining right sides together, and I'm going to pin along the 3 shorter sides. Once those are all pinned down, I'm going to sew those 3 sides, well 6 sides, 3 on each. Here I am just sewing all of those with my serger. And now I'm going to put the 2 fabrics together like they're one and pin them along the edges. For this part, just make sure that you put the front with the front and the back with the back. So I'm going to pin around where all the seams are first, then go around all the edges and pinning it. So now it's time to sew around the edges and add elastic. So I'm going to add this thicker elastic to the top and this clear elastic to the sides. I just wanted to add thicker elastic to the top so it's more snug on my waist. Somehow I forgot to record me adding the elastic to the edges, but I did it the same way that I added all the other elastic. So now I'm just going to fold over the edges of the top and the 2 leg holes and sew that down with the 3-point zigzag stitch on my regular sewing machine. Of course, I ran out of thread on my bobbin while doing this, so I had to refill that real quick. Also, if your 3-point zigzag stitch is looking a little off, it may be because of the tension, so double check that it's on the right setting and play around with that. It's time to add the fringe, so I'm going to add it to the top and around the leg holes for the bottom. I'm using the 3-point zigzag to attach the fringe, putting it in place as I sew it. As you get to the bottom of the triangles, you want to make sure that you cut the fringe before the strap channel because you don't want to accidentally sew the strap channel closed. For the bottom, since I want the leg holes to still stretch and the fringe is not stretchy, I'm going to pull and stretch the fabric as I sew the fringe onto it. That way it will still have some stretch to it. I had tried the bottoms on and marked with a washable marker where I wanted the fringe to start and stop. So here I'm just laying the fringe on the edge and slightly pulling the fabric as I sew it so that way it keeps the stretch. This is for both leg holes. Now it's time to make the little accessory stuff. So for the, I don't know what it's called. I think it's called like a girdle? I don't know. Okay, yeah, I was definitely wrong about that. I just looked it up and they're called chaps. So this is how I'm making the chaps for the outfit. So I'm tracing these leggings. So these leggings are pretty tight, so that's why I'm kind of adding extra like space, seam allowance stuff because they're tight. And I wanted the bottom to kind of like flare out. And then I put the F for the front, but honestly the front and the back kind of ended up being the same pattern. But I just made that like curve since like the chaps have that cutout. It's not like a full thing of pants, so I'm just didn't want to waste that fabric. I hate that you can kind of see my reflection in this part in the ruler, but whatever. Anyway, so I started cutting it out, and then I was kind of worried that it wasn't gonna fit my leg good. So then I literally just sat on it and kind of wrapped my leg around it to make sure that it was gonna fit, and it seemed like it was good. So then I just finished cutting it out. So I just pinned it together and kind of tried it on to test it out to see how I like the fit. So it was looking good. I just wanted that curve in the front and the back to be deeper. I am just adjusting that real quick. Then I flip it over and cut out my other leg pattern. At this point, just please learn from my mistake and add the fringe now before you pin and sew the things close. It would have been so much easier if I added the fringe now. But I had made these pants before and They were bigger, so it was a lot easier to add the fringe after I sewed them closed, but since these ones are smaller, it got kind of hard, so I would definitely recommend adding the fringe now on the sides and then sewing the traps closed. Anyways, I'm going to serge down where I just pinned. I did want the bottom part to be open, so I made a mark where to stop sewing, so that way the ankle part had a little slit. So here's what we're working with so far. I did decide to cut this part a little deeper again. Now I'm just going to add elastic and hem the top of the traps. I need to add elastic, but I just wanted it to fit snug on my legs, so I'm adding the elastic with the serger, and then I'm going to fold it over and do a zigzag stitch with my sewing machine. Now I'm just making loops at the top of the trap so that way I can put a belt through it. So I'm just measuring how wide the belt is and then folding it over and sewing that down with a straight stitch. So now I have like a channel for the belt. Here I'm sewing that channel with a straight stitch. And then I just made a mark down the side with chalk where I wanted the fringe to be. And this is where I kind of messed up because it was really hard to sew it, but I made it work. So you just want to make sure your fringe is facing the same way, either towards the front or towards the back. Here I am struggling to sew it, so the beginning part is really easy, but once it got to the end, it was kind of hard to make it all the way down to the bottom of the traps, but I ended up doing it. It was just very difficult. The fringe all the way down the leg, and then I added a little straight stitch where I stopped with the serger, that way it's secure. The belt through. I also ended up making little cuff thingies, and I just did this by pretty much doing the same thing that I did with the pants. So I traced out a sleeve. I just made it a little wider because the shirt again is tight. So then I cut it out and then tried it on and adjusted it as needed. I cut out the second one. Then I learned from my first mistake and added the fringe now. Then I folded it over and pinned it and then sewed that closed. Then the last and final step was just to hem around the edges of the armbands, and I just did that using a zigzag stitch on my sewing machine. I really don't like to show myself and my body on YouTube, but this one I had to just show off because look at how cute. Look at how cute. I could definitely see like the rave girls wearing this and like all the girls at the Halloween parties wearing this. As always, if you have any questions, just comment them down below, and you can follow me on Instagram at Devalishangell to see more of my work. I do also offer one-on-one sewing classes catered to whatever you would like to learn. Thank you for watching.